Hi, and welcome to Black on the Mat, the space where culture, community, and yoga intersect through our lived experiences. We're your host. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Saisha. Join us on this journey to bring representation and shed light on often overlooked stories on the yoga mat.
We're creating an accessible roadmap into yoga for Black people, building a community in this predominantly white space.
And letting folks already into yoga know that we're here.
They not like us. Sorry. I just feel like I needed to start the show off with saying they not like us. It's like, my hair's not moving. Sorry. I couldn't.
And hello. How are you?
I am good. I am vibing. It's so funny. I know it's a sidetrack, but I feel like this relates to yoga because I did a post on They Not Like Us talking about Kundalini yoga being not like us. But like I didn't
I saw
realize
it. It's in our stories.
it's in our stories, but I didn't even realize how much I was vibing with that song because maybe I'm from the Bay. Because I'm like, oh, this sounds good. And I saw all the TikTok reels and they're doing the little, I'm like, oh, I guess this does have a real like West Coast vibe to it. Because I was like, yes, come through. Summer jam. They not like us.
No, it's definitely hitting for something.
How are you doing?
I don't know. I am working. That I feel like I've had a lot of launches and stuff. I just feel like this being the battle being the soundtrack behind all the launches that I'm doing. I'm like working on stuff and getting stuff out. I'm like, all right, well, they not like us. That's it. We make this work happen.
I can hear you on that one, which is goes to our topic today about feeling like you're not enough when you're on the yoga mat. And I'm curious, have you ever, I mean, you seem like you're so confident, I got this. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like, I don't feel like I'm enough in the context of yoga and being a teacher or being your practice? I should clarify that.
I would definitely say, when it comes to honestly taking every new step that I've taken, when I wanted to do a retreat the first time, I worked with a company before. I worked with a travel company, and that was my first round of doing that. And I didn't necessarily think I could do it until I had the conversation with them, and they were like, "Oh, well, we'll take care of XYZ and this and the other, and this is the part you have to do." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I can handle this." I still had a lot of fear, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of like concerned that I wasn't going to make it, that I wasn't gonna sell enough spots, that I wasn't going to make it happen. And then like when people booked, I was like, oh snap, now I gotta give them a retreat. Like I have I have to be the teacher I said I was and do all these things as if this wasn't what I was already doing. I was already speaking, I was already doing this online. I had done events, I had done other things, and it was like that just I think when things are new, you just automatically face a certain level of imposter syndrome because you haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I am pretending like I can. Does that feel right?
No, I definitely hear you. Like when I first started doing events, I definitely felt that way, which was odd because I've been doing events for almost 30 years now. I'm dating myself. But like in terms of yoga and my yoga practice, girl, yes, that's what stopped me from doing yoga. Like I didn't do yoga because I was like, I would look at everyone, I was like, I can't put my head above my head all the way down and put my leg around it or put both my feet up, whatever it is that people do. And I was like, this isn't for me. Let's just keep it 100% real. It wasn't for me because I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel like I could hold my own. Like you take me to a dance class, oh, I could dance around these people. I was like, I knew I had the skill set. Soccer, I had the skill set. Yoga, I was like, I don't have the skill set. So I got out of it. And kind of being honest with myself right now, maybe that's part of why I still don't like vinyasa and hatha because I don't feel good at it because I feel like insecure in doing it. I never thought about that till just now. Yeah.
And I think, well, what I started to say was it sounds like you have more of an aversion to the performative part, right? You don't want it doesn't look like this. It doesn't, and like we compare ourselves to what it looks like and what we see. And I feel like that this is quite literally what triggered like my whole brand that when I was looking online, I was like, I not only do I not see any visual representation of this, but I don't hear any academic knowledge of it. And here I am with I had already had my master's. I was in my 200 hour, like I was like, if somebody's educated on how to speak and teach people about things, I can do this.
Yeah.
And that concept of like, I don't see anything that looks like this. I don't see any representation that looks like me doing it. So I don't feel ready to take that next step, to take that place. And like I've had plenty of people say to me, like, oh, well, I see you do it. So that gives me hope, or the idea that like I can. And while I appreciate that, I still get tons and tons of excuses. And you being 9 months pregnant is not an excuse. That is a good reason to not start a new physical problem, physical activities that are
Yeah.
actions right now. But you just thinking like, oh, well, I don't look like that. That's not enough, right? Like that's where all we're doing is telling ourselves that it's not enough of um like that I'm not enough to be able to do that, that I'm not capable. I'm immediately putting a roadblock between me and whatever that idea is altogether.
Well, how do you get someone not to do that? Like, if you see someone, well, I don't even know if you can see someone automatically say that their kind of mindset's that it's I'm not enough and so I can't do it. But like, how do you encourage students to kind of get out of that space?
Well, I think a big thing is this is part of the reason why I do offer one, private sessions, and then two, like just video classes.
Hmm.
Here, here's some direct instruction because you feel like you don't know what to do. And here's a judgment free zone. No one can see you. No one else
Yeah.
can have this judgment on you, because I feel like that's really the fear. The fear is not only I don't know what I'm doing, but somebody else is going to know that I don't know what I'm doing immediately.
I think that's why I also love Kundalini yoga because our eyes are mostly closed. So you're not judging yourself, or you can't judge yourself or compare yourself to other people because you can't see other people.
Right. And I mean, I practice with my eyes closed. If you are in a class with me where I'm not the teacher, my eyes are probably going to be closed.
Yeah.
I don't I but I also know where I am on the mat. I have a very strong sense of that. So I don't necessarily suggest that for everybody, especially where we're moving so much in vinyasa or hatha versus a more seated, more grounded version of yoga. But I also feel like that's a perfect way to start too. You might be judging yourself and how it looks and what you could be capable of. Again, in this style, try a different style, try a different way, and that could resonate with you better for whatever reason. And we've said it several times, it's a yoga's a gateway drug. Like once you start this way, if that's your invitation to it, great. You start here, then you branch off. You like this better, you try this practice, you get into this way of learning, and you know that's the way that you take it further.
I feel
So,
like it stops people from trying. Like I don't feel like I'm alone in the situation of imposter syndrome playing such a huge impact in why people never try yoga. I think some people don't try yoga because they think yoga is X, whatever X is in their mind, and X ain't for me. And I think that because of that, people are just like, well, no, no, I don't do that. Oh, that ain't for me. They ain't like us.
so I mean, you asked a good question though. Like, I don't know what would you say then was that groundbreaking shift as far as like the difference between what you had seen as yoga and what actually called you in as yoga?
For me, I would have never done yoga if it wasn't slightly forced onto me. If I wasn't in a situation where I was doing a Balinese healing and I didn't have control over what was going to happen, I don't think I would have tried yoga again because I was in the camp of yoga is not for me because I've tried it. I didn't recognize that a lot of it was a lack mindset that, oh, I don't feel comfortable because I'm the only person of color here. I don't feel comfortable because I'm the only person of color. And I don't have the skill set to match, to make up for. Because I feel like sometimes as a person of color, we got to work twice as hard. So I can't work twice as hard than these people who've been doing this for years. So I'm like, I've already lost. So I'm going to get out now.
Right, I'm gonna run away from it.
Mhm.
Because I'm trying to figure out how do we stop us, literally us, and all of us,
Yeah.
stop that like concept of running, right? Like, and it's true in getting onto the mat, but it's also one of those yoga on and off the mat moments, right? How do I stop myself? What helps here to get me into the space where I'm willing to try it? I'm willing to try it again. I'm willing to try it differently. I'm willing to try enough to find the version that makes sense for me.
I think part of it is this podcast. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, my hair really needs to work on moving. It's not.
Good for a hair flip, you
People
know.
need a hair flip. Uh, I think having the conversation about what it means to be black on the mat and the challenges that we have, and you know, putting the flashlight on the fact that some of it's coming out of this assumption what yoga is versus what it actually is, this misconception what it is, not seeing us, thinking that this is not a black thing.
Mm,
I think those, like when you start having these conversations, you start seeing your girlfriends who look like you, talk like you, are saying, hey, this really works and this is helping me feel better. That's the change that I think will helps with imposter syndrome. Like at least people just getting to the studio, because you got to get them to the studio first or to the YouTube page.
okay, so force your friends to do yoga. That's what.
With not guns or violence. We are all peaceful. Namaste, snitches. I mean, it's not forcing, but it's, I think the more you see it, the more you do it. Like, I don't know, when people were, okay, we'll go with a hair care situation. I don't know about, because your hair is a little bit different than mine. But when people were saying, oh, let's use the ACV, we're using, apple cider vinegar, or we're using whatever, and you start seeing more and more people on TikTok and Reels and other places your friends are talking about it, you're like, oh, well, let me try this. I think the same thing goes for yoga. I think the same thing goes for Reiki and all these other different things that, we get into. And the more the awareness, the more people you see around you doing it, the more you're like, oh, well, maybe there's something to this.
Okay. Just being more open about sharing your practice. And even if it's not necessarily like you don't have to be a content creator, but sharing your practice with the people in your life,
Yeah.
right? The when you're talking about your day, your week, the things that make you feel better. Because that's one thing that I know I have opened the door to yoga for a lot of people in the sense that I have made it clear like this is what actually helps me regulate my emotions. This is what makes me feel better. This is where I get out the energy where I feel like if I feel like I really want to slap like seven people, I instead of slapping seven people and possibly going
I
to
slept
jail
six.
for, slap six and get on the mat. No, get on the mat. And then let your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts process. And then now, you feel a little bit better. You feel like you could approach the situation differently. You can send that email without cussing anybody out or ending up in HR. You can do the things that you need to do to get through that space. That's how I got through the last whole 3 years of teaching with on the mat, because Jesus.
Well, have you ever felt insecure or imposter syndrome as a yoga teacher?
I when I very first started, that was definitely a question for me. Like, is this going to be good? Is this whatever? And you know what's funny about that? I feel like yes, there are students that have been practicing for years and know their stuff. 9 times out of 10, they don't know. They don't know what's better. They don't know if you are completely messing this up. They don't know, like, how many times have you been teaching a class and you forgot to do something on the other side? That happens all the time. And it happens in the beginning of your teaching career. It happens in the middle of your teaching career. It
It
happens,
happens just in general.
yeah.
We just
And
hope you
it's
don't
like,
see it or notice
right.
it.
And as you get more comfortable teaching, you're just going to be more comfortable rolling through it. Not that you're going to be excited about it happening. And then once you have regular students, they're going to be like, left side, warrior two. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, and
You're like, oh
you
yeah.
get back to it because you've got those connections. You've made those things. That person got to get comfortable on the mat with you.
Hmm.
right? So like to have that fear absolutely to start, like I don't know. And then like people come to me like, "Oh, well, I'm a beginner." Oh, me too, girl. Like I let's we're gonna figure it out.
Figure it out together. But you know, again, you gotta get to the mat first. And that is, I think, a huge part of that. I think a huge part of that, and also just being on the mat, is self-compassion. What are your thoughts
Mhm.
on that?
Well, I was just about to ask you, right? Like, because I feel like the concept doing of doing vinyasa for me and teaching vinyasa, because that's where I started right at the gate. Um, for me, I feel like knowing that, okay, this is supposed to be maybe this amount of time, or I'm gonna do it this many reps, or I'm gonna go this far, and it's gonna be this 60 minutes, we're set from here to here. I feel like in the concept of like teaching Kundalini,
Hmm.
I would be much more fearful because it's like, I don't know how you gonna feel at the end.
That's true, because you don't know, and I won't lie. There is a fear in me. Is God, please don't let no one have a Kundalini rising in class. And I say this to say, not that I don't want people to grow and heal and have these moments. People go through it differently. I've seen people go through it, and it can be really extreme. It can be disruptive to a situation. It could be quiet. It all varies on the person. So yeah, I think for me, you have to be open to the unknown in teaching. And I think that helps me with my own imposter syndrome as a teacher, knowing that this is bigger than me. This practice is bigger than me. What they're going through, what they're working through is bigger than me. I am just a straw. I am just a straw. What's coming through me is going to them, and I'm just the vessel that's kind of that's getting it to them. And that helps me with being like kind of the feeling of the imposter as a teacher. As a Kundalini teacher, I feel really good most of the part. As a yoga nidra teacher, I feel really insecure.
Mm.
And it's interesting. And part of it's because it's new. The other part of it, and it's new and it's not new because I've been doing meditation longer than I've been doing Kundalini yoga. But it just feels different in the sense that there's so many nuances to it. And I'm like, well, oh my God, did I get them into that right brain wave for this part to happen? Are they really there? I can't check their brain. I need a little light that says, okay, we're officially in this section. You can move on to that one. So I don't know. I do feel insecure, but I think also part of it's because I want people to get such an amazing experience each time. And I need to recognize what's in my control and what's not.
Yes, and the thing is, right, the concept here, what I'm hearing,
What I'm
just is
hearing.
that, you just want to do a good job
Hmm.
at it, right? You want the feeling to be complete. You want to get through what you're supposed to, and ideally, they receive what they need to. But as you said, you are the straw. So I feel like that's one of the ways that we can provide that level of self compassion and also self assurance, because sometimes regardless of how nice you are to yourself, sometimes you just want to feel like, yeah, no, 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 this is good. I got it. Right. Acknowledging what the job is. I think that might be kind of like the step to take in it. Right. If your job is to show up to a yoga class and try, then you did your job.
Yeah.
No matter how it looked, no matter what came out of it, no matter whether you kept up with every single move, whether you knew every line, every breath was synchronized with what the teacher said. If any of that is true, then great. But the job was showing up and trying.
Yeah.
Right. So you're an imposter when you're trying to put on the big show and be this beautiful yoga Instagram video that somebody made on a cloud and edited and whatever, right? Like when you're trying to
The
be that
real nice
big.
studio and everything.
Yeah, all to myself, of course. Um None of that. You don't, right? Like, there's no reason to strive for that because that's not a goal and it's not a point to reach. And
Mhm.
it's not the only definition of yoga. You're doing yoga if you show up to the class and try and put your body on the mat and listen to what is being told to you and give it a shot, right? How so giving yourself that self-compassion of, did I do what it was that I was supposed to do, what needed to get done? Yeah, I did. I didn't necessarily do it like this person or in this way, or I didn't look just like the teacher.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing that I always say to people. I'm like, well, if you look just like the teacher, then why would you be in my class?
What other advice do you give to people? Because that inner mean girl in a yoga class can be loud as AF. So, what do you tell your students to kind of help them get out of that negative mindset?
I mean, I would say giving yourself reminders, and as a teacher, giving reminders that that this is the pose, right? Or if whatever stretch, especially because vinyasa, right? Whatever stretch this is supposed to have, it is having. So whether it looks like this or doesn't look like this, you're getting that stretch. So half split is a great example. Half split sounds scary.
It
If
does.
you are a person that hasn't done yoga and you're listening to me say half split and you don't think you can do a split, that probably sounds scary. Now, half split is a amazing hamstring stretch. It can be really supported. You can put a pillow under your knee. You can keep a bend in your knee. I know all these different ways to modify it because I love teaching it and I love giving it to people because our hamstrings get tight just from sitting in chairs and cars and whatnot, right? I digress. When I tell people to get into half split, I give them all the instructions first. I offer the cushion under the knee. I offer this, I offer that. I tell them where they can put their hands, right? And then I tell them that they're in half split. Because if I told you you were going to half split, you do the same freak out that you do because you're just imagining, oh, I can't do a split. So how am I supposed to this, that, and the other? And it's not going to look like this. And then we're in it.
I love that you're giving modifications. The modification sounds like that's something you do often, which is smart. I think for me, I start the class off typically with telling people that their mats are judgment-free zones. Like this is a judgment-free zone. Like when you step on this mat, you're not judging yourself. There's no judgment here. I constantly tell people to keep their eyes closed so they're not seeing anything. But the other thing I love saying, which helps with Kundalini yoga, is that I always say that even if you're not doing the pose and you're taking a break, it's just as equally powerful to imagine you're doing it as actually doing it. So when people can't do it, they can sit there and visualize the pose in their head. It gets them to get more comfortable with it, but it also still gets the same effect of being as doing it.
Right, because in Kundalini, especially, you're aligning your energy with that pose and the purposes of it and what it's supposed to do. That makes complete sense to me,
Yeah.
right? And the concept of just reassuring as well as a teacher, like you're supposed to feel this. You're
Mhm.
supposed to feel this feels tight because, like giving those reminders that like your body is acting like a normal body in this space, I think is like helpful to get over that, like, I should be in this space or I should be able to. If you're feeling this, if you're hearing this, if you're accepting this, if your body is processing it, your brain is processing it, great, you're doing it.
Yeah. I feel like as a community, we can be doing a better job fostering, releasing this imposter syndrome, fostering self compassion. I do feel that we live in a society that's competitive, and the yoga mat should not be one of those places because so many people miss out because of they're like, no, I can't compete, so I'm not even going to get into it. And I especially feel like for people who look like us, we're like, no, we're not competing. We're gonna go compete over in this gym. We're gonna compete in this dance class. We're gonna compete in these all these other things, running, walking, anything else but this yoga thing. And it's unfortunate.
It is, and there's the prize that comes along with it is within. And I think that that's really hard to contextualize for a lot of people, right? It's like, so if you, one, the pinnacles that you can reach in yoga, the plateaus and the things that you can learn are, oh, this is how my body works. And oh, this is how this feels when. It's not, oh, it looks like that necessarily, right? Like that's not something you're going to inherently be able to achieve,
Mhm.
or what you achieve might not be something that is visual to see, right? We talked about gurus last week, right? How would you know if there was this guru walking past you on the street,
You wouldn't.
right? That
They're
doesn't
dressed
look
like
like
the hobo down the street, and you didn't know that they were the guru.
you know? So I feel like the concept of like when you go do other things, the the outcome is so visible that it is very different than when you do yoga and you actually take in what the gifts and the goals and the dreams and everything that you actually do receive. It's just, again, it's not stamped on my forehead. Now you how could you know that this is what I achieved? And so it comes with um less support, I guess, right? Less celebration. And we like to celebrate everything. I want you to give me a high five for tying my shoes. And I'm in my 30s, you know? So we celebrate everything. So
Yeah,
it just
I
doesn't
hear
feel
you.
that same.
I hear you. I just feel like the best thing that we can do when we start feeling like we're not enough to be on the mat, to have this practice, is to take one baby step into, hey, maybe I could be open to this practice and start there.
Yeah, give it a shot, give it a chance. Looking into teachers more that do represent you is a huge step. And honestly, that's true in any case. If you're afraid to get into fashion, you feel like you imposter syndrome in that case because you don't feel like you're cute enough or these clothes don't fit your body. Follow somebody who does fashion. That body, ugh, blah, blah, blah. Follow somebody who does fashion, whose body does feel representative of yours. You could shop in the same stores that they could shop in, right? Same thing if you want to be a doctor and you feel like there's no Black doctors, which obviously now there's so much social media. Follow these people, look for them, find the hashtags, do the searches, right? There's so much possible representation to help us kind of pick away at this imposter syndrome that no one like me does this.
Mm-hmm.
I think chipping away at those things constantly in your life is going to create so much more broader opportunities for you to, like you said, just take the first step, just get into the space.
Just take a step, y'all.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you have other suggestions on how you think people could get into yoga or ways that you have combat some of this imposter syndrome or ways you think of to give yourself self-compassion, we would love to hear that in the comments.
Thanks, you guys. Ciao. Thank you for joining us today on Black on the Mat.
Let's continue connecting, sharing our stories, and sowing the benefits of having a yoga practice in your life.
Subscribe to Black on the Mat on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'm Saisha, and you can find me at Thick Thigh Yoga on all social media platforms and thickthighyoga.com.
I'm Danielle, and you can find me at HelloWell with Danielle on IG, YouTube, and HelloWellWithDanielle.com.